first season of True Detective is the greatest collection of episodes ever put to television. These 8 episodes even rival most films. Debuting back in 2014, True Detective took the world by storm and set a new precedent for television. While the 90s and early 2000s had the likes of The Sopranos, and the 2010s had Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad, True Detective was a singular experience. On the surface, True Detective is a procedural cop show. Sure, but after the first few episodes, it becomes evident that this is much more than that. Creator Nick Pizzolatto fused together elements of serial killer thrillers from the 90s like Seven and Silence of the Lambs, alongside Southern Gothic backcountry bayou nightmares that featured a tinge of cosmic mystique and existential dread. Nothing like it had come before it, and nothing like it has come since. Sure, attempts have been made to replicate it, but it is a wholly unique experience chock full of superb writing, prestige acting, and surreal visuals. So what specifically makes True Detective genius? Rust Cohle is one of the greatest characters in television history, as Matthew McConaughey portrays a man so callous to the world that you would think he's almost alien. He's there, but he's not. He's an expert detective and interrogator who is the best in the state of Louisiana, but lacks basic empathy or care towards anyone else. He's so full of apathy, it's even surprising he gets out of bed in the morning and shows up to work. Rust Cohle is a black hole. He's so numb to the outside world that the first time he opens up to his partner, he spews this.
I think human consciousness is a tragic misstep in evolution. We became too self-aware. Nature created an aspect of nature separate from itself. We are creatures that should not exist by natural law.
He also doesn't give up, ever, especially on the Dora Lane case that consumes Rust's whole existence. His haunted mind tells him that he's missed something, that they didn't get their guy. He's convinced that the case runs deep, decades deep, and involves pretty powerful people. Rust decides to embark on a manhunt as a lone wolf, determined to get his answer. So where does Rust's motive and beliefs stem from? His ideology borrows from the beliefs of nihilism in the uber-pessimistic novels of Thomas Ligotti, specifically his notorious novel, The Conspiracy Against the Human Race. In fact, True Detective creator and writer Nick Pizzolatto cited the book as a huge inspiration behind Rust Cohle's philosophy. Ligotti's novel dives into ideas of existentialism and makes the claim that life as we know it is meaningless. Quote, "This is the tragedy. Consciousness has forced us in the paradoxical position of striving to be unself, conscious of what we are, hunks of spoiling flesh on disintegrating bones." This is Rust's DNA at its core, and is eerily similar to many of his lines throughout the show. Rust arrived at this depressing outlook through years of tragedy, deep undercover work, and substance abuse. He has come to believe humanity is a mistake and that we are better off dead, consistently managing to find the worst aspects in every situation at hand, which in turn angers others around him and isolates him from society. So why does he keep pushing on the case? He needs resolution and he needs an answer, which is ironic considering Rust's beliefs. Sure, he's a textbook pessimist, and obviously has been strongly influenced by nihilist-like philosophy, but Rust does seek some meaning in his life. The case he's investigating is his world, and will do anything to solve it. What makes Rust such a special character is not only his intriguing ideology, but also how he's a hypocrite. It takes a near-death experience in Carcosa and visions of the afterlife to summon it out of him, but Rust deep down has pent-up emotion. At the end of the show, it is revealed that this stems from his daughter who passed away at a young age. Rust finally reveals his true nature to Marty and lets his feelings out as he expresses that he can't wait to meet his daughter again. And at the end of the show, he points out,
I could feel, man. And I knew my daughter waited for me there.
So, who really is Rust Cohle? A man who drowned himself in the pessimistic nature of dark philosophy after losing the light in his world. After losing his daughter, Rust spiraled down a depressing path, drowning himself in tragedy, murder, and hopelessness. But deep down, Rust is a man who cares, loves, and seeks meaning. That's what makes Rust's journey so special as he finally sees the light.
Once there is only dark. Yes, any lights win it.
Marty Hart represents the average Joe who could easily be your neighbor.
Oh, I was just a regular type dude with a big ass dick.
He's an everyman you could find at your local dive bar, but he's great at what he does, and he can charm better than anyone, which makes him a great detective. Marty's beloved by his coworkers, friends, and the community. He can talk his way out of anything and illuminates an exterior of someone who is a happy, normal, everyday family man. But this is mostly a facade. Deep down, he's not that. Marty doesn't know who he is, as his wife calls him out on it. Marty doesn't know what he wants, needs, or believes, and hides this behind his charm and wit. He gives into impulse easily and can't control his feelings and wants, which results in him losing everything he cares for. Cheating time and time again with younger women ends up in Marty's family leaving him, and everyone in his life losing their trust and respect for him. It is also important to note that Marty's soft spot is for children, and he will do anything to protect and keep them safe. It's his affairs with younger women that puts Marty's morals in question, one of which is connected to a girl he met years previous in a trailer park when she was underage and selling herself to the street. In that scene, Marty was furious with her being there, noting that she was too young to be involved in this type of lifestyle. Ironically, Marty ends up with the same girl years later. So what does this say about him? He's a hypocrite like Rust. His impulses guide him to dark places and lead him to make decisions conflicting with his morals. Although these same impulses are what makes him such a great detective, he works harder than anyone on the case, not named Rust Cohle. Although he won't admit it, Marty is enamored with the mystery and finding himself an answer, suppressing this interest to avoid evoking similarity to Rust, who he believes is out of control and is a man lost in his sorrow and conspiratorial beliefs. Marty also takes risks. As a detective, they work, but as a husband and a family man, they obviously don't. Marty is also a hypocrite in that he adhered to the idea that he was above Rust due to Rust's barren outlook on life. When push comes to shove, though, they are closer than they would have you believe. The dynamic between Rust and Marty is fascinating, and their back and forth feature prestige dialogue. The show sets the tone early and does a masterful job of establishing this relationship, especially when Marty first hears Rust's outlook on life.
I'd consider myself a realist, all right? But in philosophical terms, I'm what's called a pessimist.
Okay, what's that mean?
Means I'm bad at parties.
This is jarring to him. Marty's a Christian and believes in God, while Rust's an atheist, conflicting with Marty's beliefs. The scene where Marty and Rust are driving from Dora Lang's horrific murder is one of the best in the show, and is a perfect amalgamation of everything the two characters are. Rust, a man who believes human consciousness is a mistake, and Marty, a man who believes good exists and ultimately prevails over evil. These two men clearly have antagonistic beliefs and morals, but as the series unfolds, it becomes more clear that deep down these men are more similar than not. The only thing evoking similarity to the two is the partnership between Detective Somerset and Detective Mills in the 1995 film Seven. Somerset, in a way, is a more older, more grizzled Rust. He has a bleak outlook on life and chose not to have children due to the hellish landscape of his world.
I remember thinking, how can I bring a child into a world like this? How can a person grow up with all this around them?
Somerset doesn't have as much apathy as Rust, though, and portrays himself as a man wise to his years, a much more mature detective. Mills, on the other hand, is a young, almost rookie cop, blind to the evil of the world, and full of hope and excitement. It's almost as if Mills is Marty Hart, 25 years younger, and Somerset is Rust Cohle, 25 years older and wiser. What makes the dynamic and contrast between Marty and Rust so engrossing becomes obvious at the end of the show, as the two men meet up again years later after being brought in for questioning. They are at remarkably similar points in life. Both have no families, live alone, barely scrape by, no friends, etc. Marty lost everything he loved, while Rust stayed stagnant. The opening of the show pointed a portrait of two men you couldn't find a single common trait in. The ending of the show illustrates two men more alike than different. Time is a flat circle is a consistent theme surrounding Rust's belief system, and this becomes evident through both men equally. Their decision-making stays the same, their personalities stay the same. When they meet again in 2012, nothing has changed. The men are shockingly similar and have hardly matured. They are still hungry for an answer and have the same dedication to the case that they had years ago. True Detective Season 1 separates itself from a worn-out, investigative procedural genre, incorporating elements of cosmic and folk horror to create a pulsating undercurrent of dread throughout the season. What haunts Russ and Marty the most throughout the case is the idea of the Yellow King. Spoken vaguely of by associates of Reggie Ledoux and residents of the town, the Yellow King is built up as some sort of supernatural entity committing horrific acts upon children and women. The ideas of the Yellow King in Carcosa and True Detective are pulled from a short story published in the 1800s by Robert Chambers. In the story, Carcosa is a lost city hidden amongst the cosmos in an alternate universe, while the Yellow King is a cosmic being inhabiting it, which brings upon madness and unimaginable evil. This unimaginable evil is evident in the show through the tape Rust acquires in which shows Marty, resulting in Marty screaming and being visibly upset. The show masterfully builds up the suspense of the Yellow King, but very little detail is given about him, which led to theories relating to the mythos of Cthulhu and cosmic horror. Meanwhile, Carcosa is constructed in our minds as some unthinkable place where horrific rituals occur. Pair this with the setting of the frightening backwoods of Louisiana, and you get a supernatural atmosphere. Another major influence on True Detective's cosmic elements was the Imago sequence, penned by Lard Barron, a collection of short stories that mix hard-boiled noir detective themes with cosmic and existential horror. Many of the characters in the stories mirror Rust in a way, contemplating their existence and meaning as they traverse their way through grim crime sequences that could have only been committed by otherworldly beings. The Imago sequence blends its horror elements seamlessly with bleak detective stories, and at its climax, True Detective blends into a similar horror territory as Rust pursues the Yellow King into Carcosa, a cave-like labyrinth featuring children's clothes and hellish sculptures. It's almost as if Rust is entering hell itself, following the devil. As Rust enters the center of Carcosa, a cosmic void opens up in the ceiling, leaving the audience and Rust wondering whether what they are seeing is real or another hallucination. The cosmic horror undercurrent culminates here and is almost Lovecraftian in nature, as the Yellow King and Carcosa become a form of unseen horror. The cloud could be interpreted many ways, but most likely as a vision of Rust's daughter as he goes on to tell Marty that his daughter beckoned to him from the afterlife after he was stabbed and nearly left for dead in Carcosa. Additionally, after having the Yellow King and Carcosa built up to be otherworldly, it is jarring when it is revealed to be a backwoods hillbilly committing these crimes. Also knowing that most likely there were wealthy elites and politicians involved in the rituals at Carcosa and that they weren't caught, it becomes a letdown in a way. This is acknowledged by Russ in the hospital, but Marty reinforces the grounded nature of the show and that it is impossible to catch everyone involved. It is a bleak and realistic ending in that powerful people often get away with bad things, and that's consistent with the theme of True Detective, which is shockingly relevant even still today. The idea that some powerful elites do horrible things that are covered up is a popular conspiracy theory, but also one that has come true, most notably through Jeffrey Epstein and his island. The show is actually roughly based on a child abuse scandal involving a church in Louisiana back in the early 2000s. The idea of a secretive satanic cult snatching children up in the shadows and using them in rituals is one that will always be haunting, eerie, and disturbing. And that's what makes True Detective so special, is that it deviates from the norm. It's more than just a standard investigative thriller. It incorporates abstract themes such as existence, philosophy, cosmic horror, and Satanism into the police procedural genre to create a wholly unique, award-winning experience.